The decline of aristocracy. World War I had a devastating impact on the British upper classes. The sons of the aristocracy, fortunate enough to survive the war, returned to find their place in society no longer automatically assured. Their numbers were severely reduced. Even the Prime Minister's son was killed. This meant that in the immediate post-war, those who had been expected to become leaders, particularly in politics and business, were no longer there. There was also a fall in the number of those willing to work as their servants. History professor Joanna Bork says, "In the past, the servant class in upper-middle-class homes were those people whose family tradition was to work there. When someone left, the cook would recommend her niece, and that no longer happened." The introduction of conscription had turned a professional army into a civilian one. New officers could now come from humble backgrounds and, like the many thousands of emancipated women, they were not prepared to abandon the possibility of social advancement that the war had brought them and go back to being shopkeepers and servants. Women's emancipation. Something that historians still wrangle over is how much World War I liberated women. In reality, women's work was already on the rise before 1914, and once the war was over, many women went back to their old jobs. However, without doubt, women successfully carried out a huge number of traditionally masculine roles during the war. And without doubt, some of the post-war fashions, such as the flapper garçon, little boy look, flew in the face of pre-war feminine dress codes. Also, crucially, it was after the war that women in certain countries achieved the most important political right, the right to vote. In Great Britain, they could vote from the age of 30 in 1918. In Germany, they could vote in 1919. In the US, women could vote in all states from 1920. But in France, not until 1944, towards the end of World War II. Broken faces. The first plastic surgery. Modern surgery was born in World War I. Civil and military hospitals acted as theatres of experimental medical intervention, and the outbreak of war changed the course of plastic surgery forever. Trench warfare meant that the head and the face were especially exposed to enemy fire and received extensive trauma wounds. Countless veterans survived the war, but paid the price by ending up maimed, mutilated, and disfigured. These were the so-called broken faces, named after an expression coined in France by Colonel Yves Picot, president of the Union des Blessés de la Face et de la Tête, which was founded in 1921. By the end of hostilities, there were about 6.5 million war invalids in France. Surgeons from the warring countries faced a considerable flood of these broken faces and were charged with giving them human features again, to ease the plight of their reintegration into civil life. Missing flesh and bone were covered up with grafts, an innovation that came about by using skin from other parts of the body.
بعد ما سمعنا التيب script, try to answer the questions on your own in the coming quiz, and then we will solve them together. بعد ما خلصتوا الكويز، خلينا نشوف بأي topics فينا نربط الكلمات يلي موجودين معنا، يلي كانوا refrigerators, the horse, grafts, conscription, twitches, and dress codes. Refrigerators were mentioned when we were talking about blood banks. It was established in 1914 that blood could be stored in refrigerators. ب 1914 اكتشفوا إنه بيقدروا يخزنوا الدم بالبرادات. As for the horse, it was mentioned in barbed wire and other technology. Douglas Haig, wrongly believed that the horse would continue to be a key element of battle strategy. دوغلاس هيغ كان بيعتقد إنه الحصان رح يكون عنصر أساسي باستراتيجيات المعارك. As for grafts, it was mentioned in Broken Faces, the first plastic surgery. In plastic surgery, missing flesh and bone were covered up by skin grafts. بالجراحة التجميلية، الأجزاء يلي ناقصة من الجلد والعظام اتغطوا عن طريق زراعة الجلد.